Standardized testing has caused me stress.
A bigger chip on my shoulder just saying.
Standardized testing is not really necessary.
So I got really nervous from writing actually there out.
Standardized testing is a practice that students and teachers take part in all over the country. According to the Department of Education, it's an efficient way of monitoring a student's progression through the provided curriculum. However, testing isn't perfect, and many teachers and students would argue that changes are needed. Today, we explore 3 aspects of testing: how these tests affect students, why are there so many of these tests, and do they work?
It just depends on the day how I do. I can do bad, or I can do good one day, and the next day I can do really bad on it.
I feel like standardized testing isn't really necessary because, you can have good grades, but if you don't pass it, basically you're failing still. So
The only standardized tests that stressed me out were the writing ones, because when I was younger, I got a really bad grade on my first one. Normally I was used to getting like higher scores, but I got like a lower 3. So I got really nervous from writing actually there on out. So that bad grade actually affected my writing itself.
From FSAs to the PERT to the ACT, there are many tests students are required to take, including midterms and end-of-course assessments for core classes. Some of these assessments are actually required to graduate. This creates a fear of failing and causes many students to stress over their exams.
Test anxiety has affected me negatively. For instance, ACT, I've had to study for it and take it a million times and still haven't done as good as I actually wanted to do.
One of the biggest issues we've had in a negative sense is the stress level of having kids getting more and more stressed about their education, getting stressed about school. I notice it in the high school level, but even more some of the elementary school level, where you see kids missing school, missing weeks of school leading up to the test, because it's the stress getting so bad actually making them physically ill and causing them problems. The theorists say there could be some good things from this too, of adding the stress to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, and a eustress could be a positive thing to it, but we see more negative results than positive results from the amount of testing we're doing.
All the anxiety and stress that students feel can actually lead to physical illness and depression. The negative effects of too much testing have the potential to ruin someone's future before it begins.
With the 3rd grade test, when students are fail and held behind, the studies show that 40% of students that are held back in school will not graduate.
Personally, in my classroom, these assessments affect my students greatly because they're seniors. And they may have a 3.5 because they're hard workers, but they may not be good or may not be as successful in reading. And it's not that it has to do with their intelligence, or it doesn't have to deal with how hard of workers they are, but sometimes it just has to deal with it takes a little bit longer.
Students that are held back twice in school have a 90% chance that they're not going to graduate from high school.
And so I'm frequently having to explain to my students that no, you are not dumb because you can't pass this reading test.
The frequent use of testing and its large contribution to grades may be defeating its intended purpose. It overshadows students and can cause those who cannot pass these tests to stop caring about their classes entirely.
So the distress is actually having a negative effect on them, affects them physically, where they become more tired, they become less able to focus, and more just constantly worried about this in the back of their head. Becomes a nagging sensation, just worrying them that this test is coming up. I really don't notice it much in the middle. You still have it, but not as severe until we get to the students that are seniors, and now they're still trying to pass that test. And now this test, which maybe wasn't a big deal to them before, now has large life-impacting consequences. And so in their head, they build up even more and more stress on themselves. When we get to that level of stress, it actually impedes performance.
Testing can work, but only if it's used properly. The way things are now, it may seem there are too many tests, and a lot of these tests make up a large portion of a student's grade.
Standardized testing, if used properly, is a good way to measure academic growth. The examples that I have are ACT and SAT.
According to standardizedtest.procon.org, in 2009, 81% of teachers found standardized testing to be somewhat important. However, things have changed as standardized testing has become more burdensome, and teachers are finding it less of a benefit in their classrooms and more of a struggle.
Colleges require an ACT or an SAT score. The reason they do that is because one student may earn a C in one class at a specific school, and another school for the same class a student earns an A.
standardized tests, as it were, the FSA is not an accurate predictor of a student's potential and intelligence or their academic success. Therefore, I think that if they have a really low GPA because they're not performing in their courses or their classwork, that's more indicative of why they should be held back versus a standardized test that could have certain biases, that's constantly changing, that's constantly morphing, and I don't really feel like it reflects a student's potential.
Some things I think even the way, I mean, it starts at the very top administration, even outside of our school, our district administration. So the district administration has a lot of pressure on them from the state school board and the state administration on them. They would like to change things and they're handcuffed and must operate in that. So a lot of pressure on them to perform and to get results out of the schools.
But we do have the power to tell our superintendent, we don't want to do any testing we don't have to do. And I think that message is coming through loud and clear. And I think you're going to see a proposal to that effect very soon. And we have the power politically to push up toward the state to say, guys, y'all have been given a stupid test for 20 years, stop it. Let's do something better. You know, I think that's how the board can affect change.
So the county's job, we have testing coordinators, obviously, that administer the test. There are some tests that we do that are tests that the county has come up with to try and get different scores, see how students are doing. Right now, our new academic officer is going through and kind of looking with a fine-tooth comb at saying, okay, this is totally unnecessary. We're doing a 30-point curve for some of these midterm exams. That are we truly learning anything from these tests? Because if we're not learning anything from them and they're not mandated by the state or elsewhere, then why are we doing them? So right now, it's kind of, I think, in a positive transition into that we're looking at reducing some of that testing, because we do have some that over the years, you know, the EOYs we're looking at, some of them are coming from the county.
It's clear that testing, while beneficial, is not perfect. There needs to be a way for schools to quantify students' learning and show that they are successfully teaching. Standardized testing has the potential to satisfy this need, and the Polk County School Board is doing everything they can to help improve testing environments, requirements, and testing strategies to reduce the amount of pressure that is put on the students and teachers.
The schools, hopefully our district is going to be, talks about placing less of an emphasis on testing with what we do. So I'm hoping going forward that that's what we see happen here.
For the students who are struggling to pass a standardized test, I would say keep faith, faith in yourself, because at a certain point it's not about intelligence, it's about strategies. And if people start believing that this is indicating, that these results indicate their potential, then they're not giving themselves enough credit. And so keep faith in yourself, even when a score comes back that you may not want.
I think testing is obviously a stressful time for everyone. I think I've been very encouraged in meetings with Dr. Akes and in meetings with Superintendent Byrd that they truly are going through our testing schedule with a fine-tooth comb. It's not going to change anything for this year, but I really believe that starting next year, we're going to see a lot less tests.
You'll see a great reduction. I'm talking about a major reduction in the number of district-required midterms and end-of-year assessments. That's going to happen for next year. We're going to have to go ahead and make it to the end of the year this year, because I don't really think it's fair to change the way things handled midstream, but we're going to reduce that.
However, these things don't happen instantly. They take time. Next year, you can definitely expect to see a decrease in the amount of standardized exams. As of February 14th, 2017, the Polk County School Board has announced the elimination of midterms and final exams to focus on teacher-developed formative assessments. For now, though, you gotta keep your head held up high, stay confident, and try your best to tackle any test that comes your way.